Okay. And we want one more side. Yep. Perfect. All right. So both of those are online. Excellent. Check on chat. All right. So I see those. And okay. So I'm going to turn on the music. Hopefully it doesn't have a problem. And we'll just kind of turn that up a little bit in the background. Keep me focused a little bit here. Perfect. I'll tweak the mixer a little bit and bring down that volume just slightly. Good. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to start a brand new project. And the intent of this project is to write code that helps me write code faster. So I'm going to put together a list on the side of stuff that I want to do in a moment. But essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a WPF application in C#, and that's where I'm going to start. So we're going to call this the 2025 code automation. And this is going to be the _project. Why that? Because when we go to our solution name, we're going to call it code automation _solution. Okay. So from there, we then have them named closely enough, but that we are able to distinguish the two. So now we have .NET. We're doing 8.0, so it's in long-term support. And let's go ahead and create that. Okay. So it has opened in the wrong window. So give me a moment to correct this. All right, very good. And all right, that should fit much better on screen. All right, now straight away, let's first make sure the build, the solution that Visual Studio's put together for us, actually builds. There's no inherent issue straight out the gate. So we're just going to press run with debug, and we're going to see what happens. And it did run. Okay, so you can't see it on the screen share, but it did run. So that was successful. There's no inherent flaw there. All right. Now, a couple of things from an organizational standpoint. We have this window. It's called main window. That's obvious. But it's just in this core directory of the solution, which not necessarily the greatest place for it. So I'm going to add a folder. We're just going to do a new folder, and we're going to go like Windows. Okay, obviously this is a window, but since we're doing this in MVVM style, we're going to add a folder and call it Views. All right, now the main window is going to obtain a new name, and it's going to be main window _V. Okay, so it immediately says, hey, I'm broken. And that's because we're going to switch its name to _V. And we're going to go to the code behind, right, where it's declaring the class. And we're going to change that to _V along with the public constructor to have the matching class name. So we will save that. We'll save this and we will build it again. And we'll see what happens. Okay. So reload the designer. All right, and it has has rebuilt it, which is fine. Now we have to check on app and XAML because the startup URI is currently saying it's main.xaml, which is not correct anymore. So we're going to go here to properties, and you'll notice it says startup URI, but there's a problem with that. It doesn't exist. But we'll select main window underscore v. Since we moved main window underscore v to a new location, that might not be correct. So we're going to run it, and it's probably going to tell us, hey, no, it doesn't work. Surprisingly, it worked, so that's fine. So that's good. What we can do as well is we want certain things to happen during startup. For example, we want a database to be created if it doesn't exist already. So we're just going to add some white space to this for readability. And over here on the properties, we'll go to events, and you'll notice that there's a startup event. So if we double click, it's going to create a startup event. And this is where we can tell it to actually do something during startup, which is fine. So we will just save it like that. Right now there's nothing that we're adding, but it is there. And we have the startup event. Now the same thing can occur during start and exit, is we want it to do something when we exit. So now we have code for that. Okay, so same sort of thing. We have startup and we have exit. We have two events. Very good. So we have that. Now when we think about the structure of MVVM, or model view model, we have to build up models to handle any data, views to handle any interaction, and view models to have the logic behind the views that handle events and stuff like that the user interacts with. So our view, we're going to move to the views folder, and we'll put OK. So that's moved. Add namespace, yes. All right, so that should have adjusted. We'll double check. You'll notice right away has not adjusted the startup. But we'll go back to the properties. We'll find this, and then we'll readjust. So now it's Windows views, main window view. So we've saved that. We rebuild it, and it still runs. Everything looks the exact same. So that part's fine. Now, if we want to do something with the main window, it's probably going to be primarily a one window type deal, but we're going to have a bunch of different pages that we can navigate inside the window. And we want the user to be able to go backwards and forwards and all that fun stuff. So, easily enough, we can open up the view, and then we're going to have to define something to go with it. So we have a height and we have a width, but we don't have to stay at that height and width. But for right now, this will be fine. So what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to split this vertically, and we're going to minimize the solution pane. Why are we doing it this way? Well, we're going to keep an eye on what we're coding and what we're changing pretty easily. So there is a grid inside of the window. It has no rows and columns. So we need to add rows and columns. So we're going to say grid row definitions. And essentially, we're aiming for 3 rows. We want a header to always be in the form. And then we want a footer to always be in the form, or always on the window. And then the middle section will navigate around. So we're going to put in 3 rows, 1, 2, 3, and the bottom and top rows are going to have heights that fits the content. So we'll see that we set them to auto. The default height is star, or basically take as much room as possible. And so the bottom row we're going to make again there. So since there's nothing in either one of those rows, they shrink to no height. And then we have the rest of our grid. So we're going to put things in those rows. Specifically, we're going to put borders. Maybe rectangles, but I do think we'll put borders. So the first border we will say is in grid.row 0. We don't have to put in row 0, but for our cases we are. And then put in the name border header. Okay. Now the border can have items in it, so we can put like a text block, and that text block might have text that says title. Okay. Now that title is currently way over here on the left. Not super helpful, but we can easily add a style to, again, we can navigate around that. So we're going to bring down music ever so slightly. There we go. And so we have our title, right? But the title's not much of a title, right? We kind of need it to be a title. Like it's kind of small. So that's fine. We have that. So we have a border for our header, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make another border. And this border, it can't have the same name, so it's going to have border footer. Okay. Now, border footer is currently in the same exact row, but we're going to put it in row 2, so it's at the footer. And this text, we're going to say is footer. Okay, I know, super specific. Okay. Now, if we went with background color of, like, say, gray, or even a light gray, we could see that really well on where that border ends up being. Okay. Same thing. So we have a header, we have a footer, we have some text. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Like we don't have much context to this at the moment, but we'll see where this goes. All right. So inside of either one of those borders is fine, but right between the two, in row 1, we're going to put a frame. Okay. Now that frame is going to be in grid row 1, so it's in the middle, and it's then going to display content. So we're actually going to call this name frame content. Right. So we don't see a whole lot in here, and that's perfectly fine. There's no page that we've designed for this yet, which again is fine. So when we look at our Solution Explorer, we have our views, but we need view model to handle logic about what's going on. So inside of our windows, we're going to add a folder, call it view models, and we're going to add a class that is going to be main window view model. Okay, named almost the same exact thing, but it's just a class, not a page. So it is, C# and not XAML. So in order to link this page with that page, we are going to basically take one of these things, like say local, right? And we're going to put another namespace in here, call it view model. And this one's going to be project.windows.viewModels, just like so. And then this one is actually local, is going to be windows.views, because that's the local folder that it happens to be in. And I think we just need to build it, and it should figure it out. So windows.views view models. All right, well, we'll take this out. That's fine. Save, project, build. So I think it's because the class is automationproject.mainWindowView, and not automationproject.windows.views.mainWindowView. Okay. And so we'll go into our Solution Explorer, we'll go into our main window, code, yep, so namespace, automation project, does not match folder structure, expected that, yep, that's exactly what I'm looking to fix. Project.windows.views, save. So now we should see that this should build and match, and it does. Okay, and does it run? It runs, we have our header, we have our footer. They're super small text. It's super not helpful. We want them to have some padding so they don't look rushed. Oh, that's right, you can't see it. All right, let's grab a window capture and yep, we're gonna grab, there it is. Okay. So that should show up there momentarily. So it looks blank, it looks empty, doesn't look that great, which is fine. So we're going to close this. And so now that we know that we have some content, we have a frame, we have a border, we have a header, we have a footer, we probably want to make sure that things look relatively well. So we're going to right click on our header, which is our border. And under document outline, we can actually decide on what we're selecting, whether it's the border or the text block or whatever. And under text block, we're going to go to edit style and edit a copy. So at that point in time, we're going to make this style available in the application, and we're going to call it TXB header, or actually TXT or text header, and we'll hit OK. So now if we pop this out, we'll notice that we now have a style. So it is telling us that the wrapping is no wrap, the trimming is no trim, and otherwise everything else is default. So that's fine. But if we move this over here and move that down, what we can do is, since we know that we have this style in the text block, which we can see here, style dynamic resource txt header, any changes that we make back here should be reflective up here. So we're going to go back to the visual, and we have header. So just for my purposes and my own, OCD, we're going to create a code region here. We're going to call it styles. Then we're going to end that region for styles, and then we can easily shrink this down if we want to, and that makes it fairly easy. So for the header style, we probably want a slightly larger font, making it, more predominant. So we're going to say size, font size, and maybe 12. No, 13, 14, 16. Okay. Then we're going to say horizontal alignment. And obviously value 16 doesn't work, but center is an option. So that's gone. It's now gone to the center here. And most likely, we can then take something about font weight, and we can then make it bold. All right, and that looks more like a header at the top of the screen. Now, as far as the footer is concerned, we can make another style. We're going to copy the existing one. We're just going to do this. Okay. And we now have a footer style. And it's exactly the same thing, but it's not assigned to that yet. But the font weight to this is not going to be there, and the font size is probably going to be 12. So knowing that we have that as our style, we will move this to the side. And if we go to our border with our footer text, we should be able to say That's interesting. Okay. We can do style, resource, footer. Okay. And we're going to take that background out of there because the background that I was aiming to do was for the border, not for the text block. Okay, now the text block ends up wherever. We don't really want the footer text centered. Well, so we'll go over here to horizontal alignment, and we'll say left. Okay. Additionally, with the font, it's kind of hard to see in this space, but we can also set the forecolor or the foreground, and we might say, call it gray. Okay, and if we check out our visual over here, we can then see that it's in gray, which makes sense. And to make this easier to see, we can turn off the XAML here. Oops. So we have the header, we have a footer, it's in gray, it's very subtle. We have that design working for us. So bring that back in, and we'll just kind of slide this over. So we have a footer, we can do things such as like maybe the version number of the computer we're using, messages to the user, whatever we want. So knowing that we have some footer down there, that doesn't really get us to writing code very quickly, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to make a page that will fill in the information that we need to write code, and then we'll have a button that then performs the actions. So that's where we're going to go with that. But we need a page first to display in the frame, and if we need to navigate between different pages like menus to details to history to etc., then it just navigates within the frame, which is how we're going to handle that. So let's go ahead and close XAML, and what I'm thinking we'll do is inside of here we have our code, and if we bring it like that, we can actually split the page by adding column definitions. So let's do that, and we'll put in column definitions. Okay, and the column definition on the right, we're going to make sure is 1/4 the size. So we would say width is 3 times bigger than the one on the right. Pretty simple. And then the one on the right we'll just do, but by default is just like a 1 but we're going to put the code there anyway. So that's the right-hand column. Why do we have the right-hand column? Well, we're going to use this as an active list of what are we trying to do, and then we can take it out later. So we're going to put in a border. Okay. That border is going to have a grid location of column 1. So put it in the right-hand column, and then we're going to say a row span of 3. Okay, and then say a border thickness of say 1, and a padding of maybe 5, and a border brush of, I don't know, gray. Let's try that. So we see that, and padding didn't quite work. That's not quite what we're looking for, but we'll leave that for the moment. We'll bring that back in later, and we'll say 5. All right, so we have this thing on the right-hand side that's currently spanning all 3 rows, and it's in that column, but really the header and the footer we want to merge all the way over. So inside of these guys, for the header, we're going to say a row span of 2. Sorry, wrong one. Column span of 2. That will make it go over. And the footer will do the same thing. Column span of 2. And then this border, it's actually going to be in column 1, but also in grid row 1. And we'll take the row span out. So it's only in the center section, which is fine. We have our border brush. And then inside of that border, we're going to put a text block. Okay. Now, the text block doesn't really say much at the moment, but we could make it a text box or something along those lines. So maybe it's a text box, maybe we can enter data into it. And then the text of the text box would have to like equal, like, what are we doing? Essentially, what are we working on? Things of that nature. So I do believe we can just type that here and it will appear there. Okay. So this is going to be our to-do list. Okay. Nice constant reminder. And if we do that, so I don't think how do we do well, the text box doesn't seem to want to move down the line, but I do think there was like an enter key behavior or a return character or something like that. We can figure out how to put new lines in there as well. But, so let's do a quick lookup on how do we do new lines in text box in C#. Okay, that makes sense. I'll be right back.
so you can see what you do. Restless every time we start locking eyes. Lost control. Oh, it's paradise with honesty, but in the dead of the night. Teardrops on the floor. The pain is over. Feel the darkness take control.
Okay, and we are back. Enough. So, I will hide that thing. Alright, so what we're going to do is instead of a text box, because we're not really typing into it while working with it quite yet, we're going to do a stack panel, and we're just going to do a bunch of text blocks. Okay, we have a stack panel. Okay, just like that. And that stack panel is going to host a text block. The text block is going to have the title of to-do list. We're just going to call it to-do, right? And then the next text block will be one, build page, 2, take input of variables needed for code. Okay, now this is not wrapping, which is fine. So we're going to take wrapping and wrap. So that does that. There we go. Then item 2 is going to be create templates to base code from, and this one is going to be 3 creates code that automates creation from variables and templates. Okay, great, straightforward-ish. It's just going to take a little bit of doing. Each one of these steps is going to do that. And while we're doing all of these things, documenting and whatever have you. So this section here on the left is going to be the frame that will display the page. That page will come from the view model because we're going to connect it to here and kind of work from that now. So let me get some sample code going. Okay. Into the night, I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true. That's all fine. Let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through? Right away, one of the things we're going to add is want to know when stuff has changed. So we're going to do notify property changed, not C have that part. Oh, are we go back? Yeah. Okay, well, that should be easier now. What we're gonna do. Yep. We're going to add a couple of using statements up here. So we're going to use the system dot component model. Yep. And we're also going to use system dot windows dot controls. Okay. And using system dot runtime dot compiler services. Okay. So right away it is telling us that we don't know what this is, right? But it highlighted a different color, so it came out of component model, but it doesn't implement it. So we do have to put that in there somewhere. So we're actually going to put an event, and we're going to call it a public event, property changed event handler, property changed. Okay. Then we're going to say private void notify property changed. Okay. Color member name string property name equals. Okay. And now this is documented in the Microsoft stuff to call and notify events of properties of changes. So that's where I'm getting it from. I'm not just making it up out of the top of my head. So we're going to then say invoke this new property change property name. Yep. You can see most of that's already filled in. So those two things, which is essentially the event and the property change. Now, because those are pretty basic, I'm going to create a code region room. We're going to call them interface change notification. Okay. And so I'll just put a start and end region on those, and I can minimize that section. So I don't really have to mess with that much. I can just reuse that later. So remember, we're in the main window, so we want to be able to display a page in it and bind to that page. So what we're going to do next is we're going to create another region for properties and fields. So let's do region, properties and fields, and region. And again, I'm going to name the end of it and then work between the tags. So now we can do a private page. Okay, and we'll call this page to display or page content, right? Yeah, actually, let's call it content page.
Staying up when I go out, you gotta know I'm all yours. But when I say what's that about, you start slurring your words. Tell me why you have to seem so distant when I'm holding you.
let's see what we got now. So, random interruption. Okay, so we have page. We're going to call it content page, essentially what we're displaying, and it's a new page. Okay, we're just going to leave it super simple. Private page, content page equals new, and then we're going to have a public version, so we'll change it, and we're going to call it content page. And get set. Okay, but because I'm OCD, we can now do notify property changed like that. Alright? So essentially, we have the get, we have the set, and that part works. Save. So, it's pretty simple. Yeah. For our purposes, we're going to be navigating between pages often. I don't want to write the method inside of a single view and then have to either write it multiple times or whatever. So I'm going to add a folder, and we're going to call it utilities, and we're going to add a utility in here, class called navigation utility. Okay. And right. So navigation utility is going to be pretty basic. Write a public class for navigation. We can do a quick constructor in there, so it can just be created, and then we can make an event, and we're going to do public void go to content page, essentially content page, and we're going to do a page, and we're going to give it page to display. Okay, pretty simple. That doesn't return anything, but we're gonna set up our code to do a few things. So the first region we're gonna have is variable declaration. Okay, and again we're gonna end the region like that, and the one we're gonna be working with is a main window, and we're gonna just call that window. All right. Now after that, we're then going to set variables. So region set variable values, and region set variable values. Now you don't need regions. I use them to keep organized, just to minimize the stuff that I don't need. But essentially, window is now going to equal the application. This one dot current dot windows dot of type main window dot first or default. Okay, so we have that. So essentially we get the window, and if we can't get the window, then what happens? So then we can say if window equals null, but window can't equal null because this isn't a nullable value. You know, it's the main window, right? So we probably have to make it nullable here in order to allow it to be null. Basically, if like the window's not found, we would say if window equals null, then we're just going to return. We're not going to attempt to do anything else because we can't. And that's not really in setting values. That's really more of like value checks. So in our case, we're going to do a region, and we're going to say value checking. Okay, and region for value checking. Okay, like that, and then it's gone. We're just not going to do what we want to do. And then perform actions, we would essentially take the window and navigate to a certain page within the frame. So we can again establish a new region and perform actions. Okay, and region, perform actions, just like that. And in this case, we're going to say window.frame content.navigate. Okay, and we just give it the page to display, like so. Alright, now the challenge with this is we don't have a try catch block or anything like that, because if we can't navigate to it or something else is wrong, you know, what's going to happen? So we would want, instead of our perform actions, to do a try catch. Okay, and we have a try catch block now, and then we would do some sort of error handling, and the error handling can be another utility that we write, so we know specifically what we're doing when errors occur. So we're going to do another class in utilities and call it error handling utility. Okay, and go to the definition of that. Essentially, this is going to be a public class that we can get to from anywhere, and we would just create this constructor here. Then we also want static events. So we're going to say public static void error handler. And in that case, we're going to insert exception. We call it exception. Okay. That. And what do we want to do with the error? Essentially, we want to show the user what happened, right? So there's a couple of things that come with an exception that we can find out, or that we can use. So for our purposes, let's go back to our navigation, and we're gonna grab these just to reuse their regions. So we have variable declaration, and in this case, we're gonna write a string builder. Okay, string builder, and we're gonna do SB. Now SB inside of our set variable values is just going to be a new string builder, so that part's fine. And then the value of an SB is going to be the exception, essentially, but we might introduce it with a string and basically say the following error has been detected. Okay, which is fine. And then, you know, let's have line break in there or something. And then we would do append line, and we might do the exception dot content or exceptions message, right? And we have that, and then this probably want to know the source of the problem, right? So we would take this. Say error source. Put this one here. Exception source like that. And then we can use the string builder inside of something. So we have value checking, which we don't have any values to check right now. But if we want to do something with this, like display message box, we can do that inside of here. And we can simply say message box dot show, and we probably want some sort of a title text, right? But the first part, the error message, is going to be toString, followed by we can call it message title. We can make up a string that does that, and then we would say message box button OK, followed by message box image error. Okay, now we don't have anything that relates to message title, so we probably need to create that. So we have message title, which is going to be a string, like so. And then down here, inside of our set variable values, when we decide what that is, we can say error detected. Okay, so we created a new string builder, and then we give it values, and down here, we basically put the message title into something, and we display it to the user. Now, if we have an error inside of this, then there's a whole different problem. But that's going to be a different issue. So since variable ex is declared when we're used, well, we can basically do something with that. We can say, show, we might want a new message. So we might do want a new message for this, but we probably can create one. Or we can create an independent one, and all of our variables should really be declared up here. Error. So that's fine. So that essentially error would be there was an error reporting about an error. So not specific. We have that. So we then have show, which we want to just kind of show the error. And we don't really need much else at that point. I mean, we can take everything that we already have, kind of paste that in there, do that. Okay, so we have an error now. So we have this thing called error handler. We send in an exception. From there, it basically puts together a message based around that exception, and then it displays that exception to the user in a sense that it can. So then we can say in index.message. Whatever. So we have that, and actually we don't really need this custom one here. We can just use the existing string builder, and then we can tie that in at the beginning. So we might say string builder dot append insert string value into this instance at the specified character value. So we would say, ex message. So we're going to insert that. Fine. Line is going to put that at the end, but we essentially want this to go in, followed by this. So
you think I'm someone to be saved, someone to clean up and tame. Oh, some things never change, never change. You think I would look pretty on your arm once you cover up my bruises and battle scars, but it always ends the same.
So we have that part, and essentially it's going to insert this. It's going to add a new line, which is all fine, and then it will append the original message, I think. So if we did this add backspace, I think it's backspace, set that, then that should be a new line. And that should insert, there's an error reporting about an error, and we could then do like append the ex dots message. So I think that should do it. And in this case, we would say SB to string. All right, basically the same message box. So whether it's reporting the error by itself or having an issue doing that and reporting the error with more information about a new error, then we can do that too. But for the most part, I don't think that'll be the problem. So eventually we'll have an error log where we can track those errors. But for now, we can close that. And when we're trying to go to a content page and we have a try and catch, we can actually say error handling dot error handler and then give it the exception, and we have that. So we had value checking up here to make sure that we got it, otherwise we just kick out. And then we could do another region in here for error handling, because this is pretty much just going to be a one line, you know, constant type deal. There we go. So we now have those sorts of things. Now this one says does not exist as static and can be marked as static, which is probably true on what it's doing, and we'll see if that's what we want to do. Yeah, so private static void go to content page. We give it a page, it will go there, or it should go there, because it's going to take control of the window and it's going to navigate to that area. So if this is static and this class can just be used this way, then when the main window opens, essentially, we can do something about that. Do something with that. So we don't have a page yet to display in the main section, but we'll need one to make that test happen. So let's go to our solutions. We have our windows, and we're going to add another folder here. We're going to make it menus. So menus, and the same sort of thing. We're going to add another folder inside of that for MVVM called views. And then inside of that, we're going to add a page, this time not a window, page, and that's going to be main menu _ view. Okay, so there's no page, there's no window controls on this. It's just a page in and of itself, and that part should be fine. And then we have it's local, and of course we would need the menus, but we would also need another folder inside it called view models, to where we're going to add the class main menu view model. Okay, pretty simple. Now that we have a view model and it exists, we can add a reference to the namespace for view models, and we'll rename that. Alright, so that works. And then what we'll do is we're going to set the data context for the page. So simply go page.dataContext like that, and then we would say VM a menu view model, just like so. Now, what does that mean? It says it doesn't exist, but we know it exists. We're going to hit build, and it should update IntelliType and everything else to find that that does actually exist there. So Main menu, the page itself is not going to have much on it, but we will set up the grid to have a couple of buttons, maybe a summary, maybe something else, you know, whatever you want on it. So what we'll do really quickly is we're just going to set up grid column definitions. We're going to set up 3 columns. Okay, 1, 2, 3, they're the same size. And then in the center column, we're going to set up a stack panel. All right, to put it in the center column, we would simply do grid.column1, and then do button. Okay, and inside of that button, we would do content of go to page, right? Which is fine. There's really no content in it right now. It's a placeholder, and then we'll have another button called show history. Okay, so we have that. Now the buttons are right next to each other. We probably want more margins, so we'll probably set the style and stuff like that. But for right now, we want our main window, which is this one, in this border. Well, not the border, the frame. We want it to display a certain page, which is going to be our main menu. So now it has a source of the main menu. So if we start the routine, the page shows up, okay? And it will scale and it will resize and all that is fine and dandy. All right, so that part works. Oh, right, the window is not showing up. So we're gonna try. There we go. Okay, I'm not. And oh, right, it's grabbed by the window. So we're gonna grab. Yep, that one. All right. Catch 2 is the one that went. Yep. Okay, good. So it's essentially what it looks like now. It looks super basic. It doesn't do anything. There's no click event. There's no navigation. It just kind of shows up and it's there. Really bland, really boring, not really that good looking. But we know that we're getting the menu to appear. Now, when we're in the menu, we want to be able to click on a button and take us somewhere else. So we need somewhere else to go to when we click the button. So we're actually going to add a folder, and we're going to call this features. And inside of features, we will have folders that outline each feature. And so the first one, we might call it code automation, right? Code automation, then we would need a folder for views, okay? And we would then have on the page, we're going to call it code automation, new view, okay? So this is our page. Now we want this to be obvious that this is what we're working with, and then it change pages, so we're just going to throw a text block in a moment. We're going to put the text and we're going to say new code automation. Okay, and does that show up? Yes it does. It's here in black, that's nice. But we'll flip the black off. Yep, just like that. So if we navigate to that, then we should see this appear. So when we're in the menu and we're in the view model, we want to navigate. Now if we go to the Windows view model, notice we had a few things that we dropped in we're going to reuse. So for starters, we're going to reuse this, and then from there, we would then put a region in for methods. we're simply going to say public void go to new code automation. Automation. Yep. So go to, and we're going to spell it the same way. So go to code automation new view. Alright, it has no inbounds, but what we can do is navigation, utility, go to content page.
Seeing monsters out your window. No, you can't sleep, you pretend though. You don't have to play the hero. 'Cause I got you like you got me. When the earth shakes, when the bombs scream, until our last breath, every heartbeat. You know I'll come running. must never stop the way. Birds jumping and I hear my name, grasping into life. Life is happy but it's so insane. We must merely make a start. Savannah, I'm coming home. Savannah, we'll never be alone. Savannah, the beauty of the world. Savannah, let's all take a walk. Savannah. Light is gonna come. The birds have just begun. We will always take a stand for the people, for the land. Let's go back to when we were young. For the animals we stand. Let's go back to when trees were swung. Kids across the land. Savannah, I'm coming home. Savannah, we'll never be alone. Savannah, the beauty of the world. Savannah, let's all take a walk. Savannah, I'm coming home. Savannah, we'll never be alone. Savannah, the beauty of the world. Savannah, let's all take a walk. Savannah, I'm coming home. Savannah, we'll never be alone. Savannah.
So,
I'm on my own, broken and alone. I feel the rain crashing down all
all
around
right,
this empty
mic's on,
town. I'm searching for the lost
messages off,
but you don't care.
and let's see what we can do.
Keep moving like the scars aren't even there. It's in the air like a blazing flare.
Okay,
There 'cause the flames will burn us. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh,
all
you
right,
meant the
so where are we at?
world to me.
Well,
Kiss your
we're
back when you cried for
inside of the view model for the main menu. We want to go to a certain content page, then we simply would give it the new page, which would simply be a page class, right? Um, like code automation new. So but what we can probably do, we can say new page or new page code automate. No. So we can probably do. Let's see. Yeah. So we just need to establish an object that we navigate to first. So essentially, we want to go to code automation, new view, and we're going to call it page. And the page is going to be a new instance of the code automation new view. And we're simply going to say, go to page. Okay. And when we want to divide this up, we could say, like this is variable declaration, this is variable setting, and this is using, right? It's just 3 lines, there's really no details to it. So that's pretty straightforward. And then if errors happen, this one does have error handling in it, so that's good, which is fine. So let's test this. Well, actually we can't test this because this event isn't being used. It's not being referenced at all. So it doesn't actually go anywhere. What we can do is we can take this event and we can go to our view, right? Sorry, main window. Yeah, main window view. We were inside of the main menu view model. So we're going to the main menu view, and inside of the go to page event, we're going to give that a name. It's going to be called button. Go to code automation new. Okay. And then a click event is just this event, so we'll go there. And then for this view model, for this view, we would need a view model to kind of to connect the view to the view model. So this is the code behind C# file. And so what we're going to do, we're going to create a view model. So we're going to call it main menu view model. VM is a new view model. And then the data context class is going to be equal to the view model that we just created. And then this button's click event, we would simply say VM go to code automation new. Okay, so if that works, clicking the button should swap out the page like it just did. And clicking the back button brings us back, and we have back and forward. Now, back and forward in this frame, they look like Windows Vista. I'm not excited with them. I don't really like them very much. We could probably make that window a bit bigger on the screen. So you can kind of see now I have this navigation event that I can work with. And for the go to page, that works, but go to show history, it doesn't do anything because we navigated this, which is fine. So, but this page would probably have that control, like what data am I using to build the code that I need. Okay. So we're gonna close that, and that's not horrible. It's fairly straightforward. Of course, with some of these buttons, I don't like the gray styles. The gray styles, I think, make me think the button is disabled, and they don't look great. So we're going to go to Document Outline, we're going to grab the button, and we're going to say Edit. This one says Edit Template, and I think there's a way to edit just the style. So we're going to say edit copy, and so this is creating a template in the application. I don't necessarily think I need a template per se, so we're going to go to App XAML, and we're going to try and adjust these on the style side, see if we can make that work. Let me check some of my other code. Yeah, we're going to do a template inside of a style, and then that should work just fine. So because of the way we have this going, we have like all the styles, and we'll end up with other resources in here, converters and geometry and images and all this other crazy stuff. But to kind of split them up and really keep them organized, we can set up another region, and we can say button styles. Okay. And we'll do an end region for button styles. Alright, and then these are text block styles. So we'll do a region text block styles. Alright. And then we can do a region on text block styles. So why? Well, now we can minimize that, and we don't have to have it take a bunch of space. I don't have to scroll through it. I can just skip over it. And then we're going to go for a button. We're going to do a similar sort of thing. We have a style, and it's going to be an X key, and we're going to call it button main menu. So these are those main menu button styles, navigation type deals, and we're going to do a target type. And again, we're going to do an X type of a button. Okay. So we have that, and then we have the closing style tag there. And then as far as the setter goes, the first thing I want to do is, I think the background of these buttons should be like white or something. So we're going to say setter property background value white, like so. Now we can always set up color collections to work with, but so we have the background as white, and that's fine. And then we can also set border brush to maybe be like a light blue. Okay, might be a bit too light of a blue, but you get the idea. And then we're going to then call border thickness of say 2. All right, so that's pretty simple. All the content, we want buttons to be centered, and we're probably going to want some space around them. So in order to put space around them, we add a margin, and by default the margin is 0, but we're going to put a margin of say 2. All right, so now we have margin of 2, and we have a main menu button style. Now we built the style, but we haven't applied the style to these buttons. So we simply go back here, and we can then say style, dynamic button main menu. And that looks a little bit better. I'm not 100% sold, but looks slightly better. And then we can put that style on this other button as well. So that's okay. Now let's go into the definition of that style. And there's a way for us to really mess with the template of the button altogether. So if we went here and we said edit template, edit copy, and we can just do that, we can then use that template wherever it happened to go. And there it is. So it gave us a bunch of colors to work with, and then it established this template, you know, that it has border, it had triggers, it had a content presenter, and then it had all of these other things. Well, we're going to take essentially most of this template, and we're going to embed it inside of the button style for the main menu. How do we do that? Well, we simply go setter property template, and we close that, and then we would do a setter value tag like this, and then we paste like this. And so it doesn't get a key because it's part of this. We do have a target type, and not button base, but a button. Okay? And then in this case, it's kind of lining everything up on one line. We're going to lower my music a little bit here because it's just too loud. Okay. That's a little bit better. Yeah, I'm sure you're not even hearing it at all. There we go. Okay. So we have our border, we have some of the backgrounds and stuff like that. I'm gonna leave the name in line here, but I'm gonna bring some of the properties down so they're easier to see and to read. What you can see is a couple of things are happening. It's just binding to the template. We have a content presenter. Yep, it is focusable, which is fine. One horizontal alignment, fine. Margin. It takes the distance from the padding and uses that for the margin, which again is fine. Vertical alignment. Okay. And so we have our border, and then we have our triggers where colors change. But you will notice here, it's basically saying, hey, we don't have that color. Well, that color is down here. So the color that we originally had as part of the template, we'll probably want to put in a section above this so it encounters it first. So we're going to create a region. And we're going to call it colors. And a region of colors. Okay. So those are the colors given. Now that it encounters those first, it doesn't have any issues with these colors, which is perfectly fine. So this basically says, hey, we have a background of white with a border brush of light blue, border thickness of 2, and a margin of 2, and then we have a template. And then we have this border in here. But we want these to have slightly rounded corners, so there's a property called corner radius, so we're going to bring it to 4. And that means we now have this slightly rounded corner radius. But this is trying to go for a template that doesn't exist, so we're going to get rid of that. And now we have both buttons. And we have a slightly rounded edge with a blue border with some reactivity. When we mouse over, I think it will change colors. So we're just going to double check on that, because when we say is mouse over, it's basically saying the background is this background color, which is up here. All right. So that's not white, that's a slightly different color. But let's go ahead and run it, see what happens. Okay. So if we mouse over it, it does respond like a button should. And if we click it, something's weird is that when my mouse is down, nothing's changing. So we're going to find is pressed. So we have this button pressed to background, which I'm thinking is the same color. Mouse over and button pressed look extremely similar. So we're going to have properties. We're going to grab this color. And I think we're going to darken it up a little bit. Okay. Yep. And that means when we run this again, it should be different enough. Yep. Mouse over, I click, there's actually an event that, you know, I'm clicking down on that, clicking down, and then it will take me in. So that appearance is okay. But now we can change it in mass all over the place all at once. But we have this thing to deal with, this goofy navigation thing that makes me think Windows Vista, Windows 7, it doesn't look good. And that can go away, right? So knowing that we have our colors, they're responsive, you know, we have our triggers that call those things, which is all fine. We'll add a little bit more white space for our purposes. We have a corner radius. That part's all fine. Essentially, we have our main menu type button. Okay. Now, how do we get rid of that funky navigation that makes me think Windows XP? So you can see this frame. There's a property here called navigation UI visibility. And we're just going to say hidden. It's not going to show up. We're not going to get it to show up. But that kind of restricts our ability of navigating back and forward. right? We can click it, but unless we have a button that makes us come back the other way, maybe not so helpful. So now you'll see that like I can hit the back button on the mouse, but that's not super clear. I can hit go to page, there's no back button, but I hit the back button on the mouse, it does go back. That's not super clear. So I can actually build in a back button in the header that controls the frame that will tell it to navigate back. And that's what we're going to do. So this header that's up here, all right, for header, we have a text block in it. What we can do, because the border can only contain one object, okay. So if I want to split this top border into 3 sections inside of itself, I can do that. I can simply embed grid into the border and put the text block inside of the grid, like so. Now my grid can have 3 columns, or at least 2 columns, and we can put 1 column in here, right? 2 columns in here, and the first column we can say with is autumn. Okay. Now that means the text block we can then say is grid.column1, and that kind of moves itself over to the center still. We can then do a button, and that's going to be in the first column. But we might put something in the button, maybe an image. And what would that image be? Well, in order to include images with our solution, we really should have an assets folder, something that contains all of the pictures of the application. Images, you know, icons, stuff like that. So let's go ahead and add a folder to this. We're going to call it assets. Okay. Stupid. Back to actually getting that stuff done. Where are we at? All right. So we were gonna put in a button that was gonna have like a back arrow of some sort. So I have some arrows and pictures and icons and stuff like that that I've downloaded. I found one, so we're going to use open File Explorer, and we're going to put a backwards arrow here, so that looks like that. So that's what we use this image. So go to properties, or go to source, we got it backwards. So you can see that the image isn't exactly centered. It's a bit of a pain in the ass. But what I can do is I can open that inside of something like Paint or whatever, and we can edit it. So we're gonna do that because it always has bugged me that the default images from Microsoft are 1 pixel off. So we'll save that and we'll do a quick build. Hopefully this will center out. Yep, it seems to have centered out inside the image now. So that'll look better. That's this back. And we'll basically need to, call this back button, but we only have the program in one place. It's on the main window, and we need it to control the frame within it. So this is where we can call it name, button, nav, content, back, click, right? And when we go to our definition here, then we'll have to work with that. So we can simply say main window, new model, we'll call it VM, equals new. Okay, and we'll say data context equals VM. Okay. Now what that means, inside of the main window VM, we have the content page, so the frame, and then we have region methods. Okay, and we're going to put an event in here called public void nav content back. Okay, and then we can essentially nav back. Like we can do something like frame whatever, but I think the view model has no context of the view, so it doesn't see the frame control, right? What we can do instead is we can go to our utilities and our navigation, and same way that we're controlling it to tell it to go to a specific page, we should be able to tell it to nav back. And so we can switch this and say nav back. We don't need to give it a page per se. We're just going to find the window, we're going to find the current window, and if it's null, we're going to return it, so that part's a given. And then from here, we're going to say if window.frame content can go back, window frame content go back. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. We just say back, copy. This is static, so it becomes just a one-line call. So this one that says, hey, navigation utility dot nav back, just like that. This one's saying, oh, it does not access can be bar static. And, well, this one's already static. This one is fine. But this event in the view model can be accessed by the code behind really easily, and we can just say nav content back. Do we really need an event in the view model that does that one thing? We could call the navigation utility and just say nav back. We can do that too. Either way, but I imagine if we're going to do other things when we try nav back, like check on the page or do a log or something like that, we have those events. So let's see how this looks. So we can go to a page. We don't see any sort of button on top. Like that image, that icon that we said that said back isn't really showing up. And there's a reason for that, because this here, if we go to properties, it says do not copy. So build action, we're actually going to switch this to resource. And at that point in time, it will build with the program. And in that way, the image will appear on the button, just like that. Now, the button is there when we mouse over it, but it doesn't go anywhere. There's nowhere to nav back to. This allows us to nav back. We don't have the Windows Vista looking navigation bar, which looks bad. And I'm not a big fan of these round arrows either. Kind of give me Internet Explorer vibes. That can be changed over time. So that's pretty easy. So we have that. We can nav backwards. We have this button that says show history. So in reality, we're going to have the main feature of the system where we say, hey, we want it to write code. We also want it to document that it wrote code, what options were chosen, what entered, what data was entered, stuff like that, and was it successful or not? Because we can evaluate how long it takes, how much time it saves, those are all critical KPIs to understand how effective this is. So we're going to need a local database in the application. So we use Sqlite for that, and we'll have to establish a database as the program boots up. So there's a couple of things to do with that. So our to-do list is going to get a little bit longer, and so if we look at our main window, our view, we had our to-do list in here. And we'll also have to put, we're going to take the kind of numbers out because we're going to list them in the order we want, but we'll have to do stuff like that. So we're going to also need to build Sqlite DB to store data about selections, etc. Basically to store local data. That's one of those deliverables that we'll need. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. And granted, right now we don't really have a lot going on with this. This button probably should have some sort of a style to it, I think. So we can probably go over here to document line, we can grab our button, and we can do edit copy. And so this is creating a template again, and we'll say button style 1, right? But we'll open this up, and we end up with the same problem. The button got us a bunch of colors again, and then we got a button style. But the style then has a template inside of it. So we're going to manipulate this a little bit and then use this in something else. So what you'll notice here is that these colors all go 1 at the end. So we're going to grab these color brushes and go up here to colors, put them back in. Now, they're all called button. This is not super helpful. Like, these are button background 1, these are button background. That's not helpful at all. So what we can call instead is these are really more menu buttons, and these are navigation buttons. So that might be more helpful. So that's what we can do that might differentiate what's going on. Call that a nav button for short. We can get rid of these extra numbers at the end. Right. Nope. Right, so we have nav buttons. Now that does mean that essentially this button style, which we have here, we're going to call it button nav. We're going to call it button nav back. Okay. This is going to look for a certain style, and we're going to just use the colors for nav button, which is fine. So we can give it a little more space if we want. 2, and we probably want some sort of margin. Alright. And then inside of here, again, it also has a bunch of colors. But you'll see that like it's putting everything in like a single line out to make it a little bit harder to read at this point. I don't necessarily like scrolling, right? But we can do that. So got the border with the content presenter inside of the border. So if we're trying to put text in there, we're trying to do whatever, that's where it would show up. I have a problem with the content presenter. It doesn't necessarily need its own margin per se, because it's adding a margin based on padding. So that's fine. And because we're just going nav back, we might just put the image in here. So let's look at that, and then we have triggers, and what we can do is if we highlight this whole section, we can do Control H, and we can search for button dot, and specifically space button dot, and if we just use space nav button dot as a replacement in the selection, it very quickly fills in our colors, but it does have these 1s at the end. So we just have to remove those. There's only a handful of them. Otherwise, we could do like a find and replace pretty quickly. Okay. We can do that. So now we have that color. So this still says I have 7 issues. This is our menu button. Instead of being nav button, we'll do menu button dot. Then selection, and there we go. So now our errors have gone away. And we've set up our style. So we have our menu button, and we have our nav button colors, which is fine. We have this focus visual style, which we'll leave alone. This is more like a system style, and it's not specific to buttons. So we can set up another style region. So we can do system styles. then we'll have the focus visual style here. So essentially, anything that refers to this. Some sort of a rectangle, stroke. Not quite sure what it's supposed to do for us, but it's there. It came down to start as a template, so we have this now. Okay, we can minimize that. So that's where that comes in. This is that focus visual style. It's focus visual. All right, that's fine. So then we have our control template triggers with all of our colors. Also fine. So essentially, if we minimize this, we have nav back and main menu as two different buttons. Nav back, however, maybe we want the content presenter, but ultimately the content will occur after the image. Again, we only did the image like one time, but if we took the image out and we went back to our XAML, put the image back here, it's going to tell us, hey, you have too many items inside this border. You can only do this with one item. Well, we just use a container item. So, for example, like stack panel. The stack panel, we can set a property called orientation, horizontal, and just step these out one time. And now, in the view, if we set the style up, and back, we have that part. Okay. Then we don't need the closing tags because we use a self-closing tag just like that. Because of the style, we bring the image right away, just based on the style. So we just have the name, the style, and click event, and that's it. We don't need anything else. Text block, we really have the style, the text, and the location. Also fine. We have the frame, the source, etc. Now this back button here has this funky gray border, and I don't think we need it really. So we can go to our event, and this says border brush. This I don't think we need it. So nav button says border, right? So if we go to the dimension of that, we can just adjust it here. We can do transparent, like that. Now, the view model shows no border. The border's still there, it's just transparent, and it looks much cleaner. Okay. Save, run again, and we're going to make sure that it's running. So we can go to the page, we can hit the back button. That's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. We can go in, we can nav it up, or back it up. But so far, we haven't done really much besides setting up this and a simple navigation event. Now, this page, we're going to have to set up a bunch of controls on or take information about what needs to be done. So, we'll be right back with that. And we're back. So,
but if you wanna travel, then go alone. Yeah, what's the point in us if I never know? If you're
that's
gonna
not
leave, I'ma let you go.
right. It still has me linking up as, what is it, satisfactory on YouTube? It doesn't make any, or on Twitch, it doesn't make any sense. I just noticed. Huh.
I fell where my demons dwell. My own little nightmare, I call it hell. Oh well, it's time to get back up, climbing and climbing. I'm done with this ride, is what I tell myself, so I could feel something else. Yeah, I guess I had
Why does it
my
say offline now?
days, but it doesn't mean I lost myself. Where were you when my heart was on the ground?
It's really strange.
That you would stick around. I guess time stands still, a king without his crown. Now I'm breaking, you're faking, girl. You never made a sound. I'm tired of the
Strange. It's very strange. Which says it's there, but it's not there all at the same time. That's stupid. Alright, well. It's not helpful at all.